This episode goes out to my very best of friends, TJ and Dustin, my family, and God. Thank you for helping me find peace in what I'm doing and sharing all of your love with me along the way. It was the evening of January 14th, 2021, when there was a realization by a man named Mr. Honest. That's me. He realized the hours were counting down until the new show and the introduction of MCU Phase 4 and the Multiverse Saga, WandaVision, was premiering with a 2-episode premiere. I thought, this is so exciting. I'm going to stay up for this. I'm going to watch this the second it comes out. Then something else hit me. I did a podcast at the time. It was called Mr. Honest, and I've deleted all of them since. It was a good warm-up show for what I really always wanted to do, and I came up with the idea on the spot, a podcast called Marvel Maniac, an MCU after show. It took me about 1 minute because it just slid right off the tongue. And I went, got my little laptop, watched these episodes. I had no idea what was going on. I was a little out of my league because if you remember the first 2 episodes of WandaVision, they're a little like, okay, guess what we're doing here? You don't even know how or why we're here. And I personally was a little more ASMR-y. I'd probably talk a little more like this. And I think I've really found my voice a little more through more and more episodes. 4 years. And I got to be honest. And if you've been here for that long, thank you for your commitment. I know that listeners are there. I know it's not huge, but it's people listening consistently to the show. And I haven't been present for the entire 4 years. It's been 4 years, but there's been more of, maybe call it sagas or chapters or anything. Like, there's been chunks of my life where I've been able to do this podcast, and there have been times in my life where it was very hard due to mental health issues. And I hate saying issues, mental health. I don't want to cause a stigma. All I want to say is you could beat a stigma. If something like happens to you or mentally, if you feel like you're not yourself, if you feel you've changed, if you feel self-conscious, you can change that. If you fall into a pit, you can get out. And during the show, it had nothing to do with the show. I just was going through some stuff. So I did about 2021. I covered almost the whole year up through Hawkeye. And then 2022 was a really rough year for me. So this is when a lot of big shows were coming out in 2022. So the first thing I missed, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And then I missed Thor: Love and Thunder and Moon Knight and Miss Marvel. And all I was heartbroken because I couldn't record and react the way I'm usually doing it. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have the power. I lost that. And after a little bit of time, a little bit of therapy, whatnot, I was able to come back, bring the podcast back, and cover She-Hulk because I was really excited for that show. I figured I'll just cover She-Hulk and then I'll get back on all the other episodes. The problem is my nice microphone was gone. I had a new older mic that did not pick up sound very good. So if you go listen to those She-Hulk episodes, you will hear a terrible audio quality. You can still hear it. It just is like you're listening to the show like on an AM radio. But even one guy, not many people review our show. We could use your 5-star reviews. Please help us get in the algorithm. But some guy commented, it's a great show. Fans of the MCU would love this. It's just got bad audio, not the best audio. And it was that short time. After She-Hulk, I did Shang-Chi in there too, Shang-Chi, and I love that too. But it was really hard for me. It was like dragging my feet to do it. It's like the biggest part of me wanted to, but my brain was not allowing me to get hype like I always am. I was going through it. So I did everything I could, and all I was able to get done were those things that year. Another year later, we're hitting 2023 now. I got surprised from my parents. They got me another Shure microphone and a nice arm, big arm for the desk. And it literally sparked everything for me. I looked at what's coming out. I looked at what I'm watching. I'm like, I want to bring the podcast back. So I did it for a few episodes. I covered a lot of Phase 2. I covered Ant-Man and the Wasp. But yet again, I had to go back into another hiatus. And that was the last hiatus before the one that brought us back to here. And the final hiatus was really, really hard because I felt like I was really on track and I had to go and take care of my problems. Your mental health always comes first. And I just want to say that when the time came and I felt better again, I came back to my podcast, and I haven't been doing it longer ever since the beginning. And I don't think I'm going to stop. And I'm going to say I don't think because no version of me wants to stop this podcast. Even at my lowest, I was thinking I got to get back to Marvel Maniac. Why? Because I enjoy this universe. I am passionate about being a part of it in any way. I'm not the most knowledgeable fan. My excuse of ADD. I don't catch every single moment of every single thing. However, I think that self-consciousness got to me, because if you go back and you listen to the first few episodes, maybe to 40, 50 episodes, I'm figuring it out. My format, my style, how I want to do this, how I want to talk about Marvel, how am I going to go back to the other movies and stuff when I'm talking about the current stuff. Well, this year there was luckily one upside to there being only one Marvel movie, Deadpool and Wolverine. That came out just around the time we got new mask, same task from Tony Stark. And set in stone from that moment, I'm bringing the podcast back, Phoenix out of the flame. And I've never been, even in the original run of my podcast, I've never been more confident being here. I never loved being here more than I have ever. I love this, and I want to celebrate Marvel and bring all the positive vibes to it. Sometimes I'm overly positive, but sometimes you just have to be honest. Like, I remember for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I was really upset about how they spoiled the movie in the trailer. And if you go back and listen to that episode, like, I go back to that thought like 7 times. So just so you know, I'm always kind of working on my style, my delivery, what's going on. I know I'm not a normal podcast. I know most times there's a co-host, but there are great podcasts, Bill Burr, for example, that they can hold their own. And I bring in my favorite buddies when I need partners. TJ Dustin, Ryan Airy of Screen Crush. What a great guy. He's out on tour right now. Anyone who wants some other after shows on the visual side of things, go to Screen Crush. You most likely know of them before you knew of me. But if you don't, you're missing out on some great recaps. Now, we're here 7 minutes in. And we're here, and then this is actually where I'm telling you we're beginning our episode, because this is a special moment, a special time, and I want to commemorate this Endgame episode. It's not your regular episode. It's going to be commemorating the podcast, and I'll be maybe referring some things about the past few years. Although I did want to tell you that story, and the comeback is unbelievable. I don't care if I have one listener. You have to love what you're doing before anyone else can. And I'm just so grateful to have been able to come back and cover Doctor Strange and cover Moon Knight and I'm about to cover Miss Marvel. I'm not going to miss a thing. And this marks the moment of my podcast where I have covered the entire Infinity Saga. So I wanted to lay this milestone on a milestone, so it feels special, and it dang well does. And I know there's people who put thousands of things out a year, and everyone's different. And I've realized I tend to be, and could be a jealous person. But there's no reason to be jealous of anyone else in this space who makes Marvel after shows or YouTube channels. It's all respect. And I feel just lucky to even be here. So without further ado, our 4th anniversary episode. This is Eric Cicada, a.k.a. your host, Mr. Honest, and we are here for the Endgame. Yes, the final Avengers movie up to this date. We know there's more coming, but this was a definitive stopping point. This show I always refer to Thanos on this show. And I've said many times, and you might have heard it in my recent Infinity War episodes, that's my favorite Marvel movie of all time, Infinity War. In a piece of my heart, Endgame is the same movie. They were going to call it Infinity War Part 1 and 2, and they gave the last one a new name. And it's a callback to Tony Stark saying that. That up there, that's the Endgame. He's talking about putting a suit of armor around the world. And they go back to this exact conversation at the beginning of this movie, Tony and Cap. And Tony completely recalls it. I wanted a suit of armor around the world. Your precious liberty stood in front of that. So since I've come back, I've been using outlines. I've loved outlines, and even when I use them, I'm still all over the place on what part of what thing I'm covering. But they're a nice reference. I have some notes. However, I don't really have like an intentional outline. I wanted this episode to feel kind of like one of my earlier episodes, except for the fact that I've said this on the show probably more times than I did it. But one of the worst things I did for a series about 4 months, maybe on the podcast, maybe more, or early episodes, I would, instead of really give you my opinion and after show, I'd pretty much go into recap mode and recite the entire movie back to you. And in there, I'd be putting in my thoughts. This led to hour-plus long episodes where some podcasts do that really well. For me, I decided that coming back this time around, 15 minutes is a good sweet spot. And you're looking at your time right now and you're like, he's got 5 minutes to talk about Endgame. This is a special episode. There's going to be movies, most likely the release of movies, season finales, big moments. Those will kind of be longer naturally because we got a lot more to talk about. I plan to make this episode longer because I wanted to share the story and let you know that you can get back to anything. I'm completely successful now and I'm able to run my life off my podcast. No, but I love what I'm doing, and it seriously is a work of passion, and that's the only time anyone would ever find work through something like this. You really have to. It's the same thing with Twitch. I hear Twitch streamers say it all the time. You have to love what you're doing. It'll come naturally, and I haven't been searching for much more than just people to listen, and the fact that you guys are, thank you for listening to my show. If you listen to one, if you listen to all of them, thank you. Thank you so much. It's not the end game for us, and it also wasn't for the Marvel Universe. It sure felt like it during Endgame. We begin the movie with Hawkeye losing his entire family, and he's having a great time with his family. He's having such a good time. He's not even out there with the Avengers during this Infinity War issue because it happened so fast. I'd say the events of Infinity War took maybe a day to 2 days. We got like one night time in there, and then they're traveling around the world and stuff, but Thanos has that gauntlet, and he's traveling. So I'd imagine, ironically, this took place over like 2 or 3 days, right? This movie took over 5 years in story, and what really actually freaks me out to this day is we finally caught up to that last year. So it's been 5 years later since 2018 when the snap happened. We're on year 6 now since that happened. They kind of were able to keep the MCU with the same years as us up until that point. When they did that 5-year jump, I think they confused some of the other showrunners / creators of the MCU. I think they got it down now. There was a mistake in Spider-Man No Way Home saying it was 8 years later. No way. Spider-Man No Way Home, that like right after we meet the Vulture in the beginning, we meet Spider-Man, I want to say maybe like 3 to 4 years later. The Battle of New York happens and then Civil War comes up and that's when we meet him. All these things culminating into this movie. At the very beginning, even the usual titles where we see the people, heroes, and in the Marvel logo, it's like opening up for us. Dun, 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 dun. This song this title had a different song to it, like a rock and roll song, and all the Avengers that were snapped were like literally digitally removed from like their movies and respective scenes in that opening to make it feel half empty because Thanos really won. And that's what this opening of this movie really tricks us in a good way, but a little betrayal at first if you're waiting for a year. Okay, so what it does, we find Tony Stark nearly dead in space with Nebula. What a great combination of people. He's playing football, Nebula. He's pretty much accepted that he's going to die. He even records this message for Pepper. Like in the last movie, he says, no more surprises. And he said, I said no more surprises, but I was hoping to have one last one. And he even has that little bit of wit. He's like, yeah, don't play this in front of people. It's going to be a sad one. And honestly, dude, when I was in theaters watching that, we did not know what was going to happen in this movie. The trailers were really great and that they did not show us next to freaking anything. I thought I was watching Iron Man die at the beginning of the last Avengers movie. And I mean, that's what it felt like at the time. They really were leaning in and emphasizing on the end, over, story, cut, new chapter, right? New saga. They wanted to move on into a new era. And I think iconically, the Infinity Saga has very little to critique. except if you want to start writing fan fiction of one or two things where, like, oh, this character should have died and this character should have done this. Well, it stands on its feet. It's pretty good with the continuity. My Edward Norton Hulk theory ties right in with the multiverse saga. TJ and Dustin hate that idea. I hope we see Ed Norton somewhere in Secret Wars. I really do. So before we even get the titles card, they're looking for Thanos. And now that Nebula's here, she can say he wanted to go to the garden, this planet that looks ideally perfect for maybe a group of aliens that we talked about recently that don't have a home planet and is completely deserted of any life, but looks completely gleaming like it's Thanos's like vacation world that he would have ideally chosen to spend the rest of his days. Why didn't Captain Marvel bring the freaking scroll here? I've heard this. This is not my idea. This was on Screen Crusher New Rockstars. This was a while ago. That's why I can't tell you which one. And I'd say it's just because the writers were writing the beginning of a movie and not thinking past to the sequel of Captain Marvel, which just came out in theaters, so close to Infinity War. Like, they didn't want us asking that many questions. But if anyone over there did a little bit of extra digging, they would have figured that out. There might be an in-universe reason that most likely says that planet isn't unoccupied. It just has very little life. Perfect for Thanos. Worlds are very big places. We think of Titan. We think of the one place they fight on Titan. We think of Loki. We think of the TVA. But there's that whole outdoor area we never get to see. Like, I'd really like to make my own reasons as to why. You know what I mean? That she didn't do that. And I don't expect an answer. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's not even in light of Captain Marvel. It's in light of Secret Invasion. And then how they don't connect Secret Invasion to the Marvels, like barely. And that's not Marvel. That's not what they do. They don't do stuff like that. So I hope they heard the criticism for Secret Invasion. We're talking way ahead of ourselves now, but this is all the things that these last few movies build up. And I'm saying this is the end of the Infinity Saga. We got a nice ending bookmark in Spider-Man Far From Home that came out a few months later. The only bad thing about that, it just kind of killed the immersion of the snap, because Sony wouldn't let Marvel not put their trailer out like 2 months before the movie. So we had the trailer out for Spider-Man No Way Home before Endgame started, and Spider-Man's dead. So it's like any person with 2 cents would probably already think that the Avengers were going to win somehow. We just couldn't imagine how. How? I could not imagine, because when they get to Thanos, he doesn't have the stones. A lot of me thought that maybe he buried them, hid them, put them somewhere. I don't know. I think a lot of the other Avengers maybe wanted a little more interrogation before, I did my work, and it'll always be. And you listen to me. I'm inevitable. Like that pissed Thor off. So he chopped his head off. That's a Marvel movie. I've never seen such a big character get their head just chopped off. If anyone deserved it, it was him, right? Well, instead of getting that feeling of, all right, go Thor, like even you as the audience, I laughed. I remember in theater, I laughed, and then I felt the awkwardness in the audience, and I'm like, why? Why is everyone feeling awkward? And then Rocket even is like, what'd you do? Because it was their only chance to get more answers. Thanos could be, like we talked about this with Ryan Airy, Thanos could be 100, 1,000 years old. He could have lied to them. Why? Because I'll tell you exactly what contradicts the fact that Thanos does lie, even though Nebula says, my father is many things, a liar is not one of them. She's seen him act on his plans. But there's that scene, if you look back at Infinity War with Gamora, he's like, your fight, your willpower, I don't know what he says, you got that from me. Lying, you did not get that from me, because you're terrible at it. And that tells me that he takes pride on being a very good liar. I'm so hyped right now, basically screaming into my microphone. I might need to lower the levels in this episode. I do my best with the levels, guys. I think the audio files come out very loud. I'm doing my best to mess with that every week. I had it at one point where I had to change the episode and fix it because it was so loud. And then sometimes I try to fix it and it was really quiet, so I had to go back and change it. I think we're at a sweet spot. I think you could bump this in a car stereo alone if you wanted to wake up. And you can turn it way down and you'll still hear everything articulately. MarvelManiacPod at gmail.com, all your feedback. I'm also on Twitter at MarvelManiacPod, Instagram, and TikTok. We're just starting to put up clips from the episodes. Give us your thoughts on there too. We'd love to hear what you think. We as in me. So yeah, then we get the big 5 years later. 5 years later, jaw drop. I always wonder what fills all the time in this movie, and I really actually think it is the battle at the end of the movie. I think it's 40 plus minutes long, and because I always remember Endgame there's a lot of build up to the big fight at the end, and there's not as much action up until that fight because it totally takes any other fights that could have been and takes them on another level. Yeah, we get to see Cap versus Cap, and Cap say Hail Hydra, and I think Captain America opened up a very different timeline when he said that to those men. I think they're going to bring him and pull him in and make him the Hydra Captain America. Everyone wants this. Everyone wants Doom Iron Man to go get Hydra Captain America and have a badass evil Avengers to fight our main Avengers alongside Doctor Doom. Oh my goodness. What if Doctor Doom's a good guy? They can do anything they want with these characters. It doesn't have to stay the way it is because no one knows it. They can change the whole movie. They could say they're changing the whole movie and only be changing a few things. They could have said what they said about all having that big idea that clicked all at once that made them all want to do this again. They could just be saying that to get us on board, to make us feel comfortable, to make us feel hype. But if I've been ever confident in a director and writers, it would be with Joe Russo, Anthony Russo, Stephen McFeely, and the other guy, Christopher Marcus. Great team. I bet you they'll get I forget if it's Marcus or McFeely. I don't even know which one is on the movie. Those guys are kind of a team. I would be very surprised if they didn't get any feedback from the other guy because he's such a big part of the successful MCU. The Infinity War, Endgame, Captain America Civil War, Captain America going backwards, Winter Soldier. They were a part. They wrote those movies. They even wrote the show Captain Carter on ABC, which I went back and watched the first season of last year when I was out of it, but it was a great show and I would recommend the first season. I haven't seen the second season. I got carried away with other things. So yeah, this is also paying homage to the part of my podcast that trails off and talks about things that aren't on topic. It's a celebration of everything that you might want to critique about me, but also the right people will want to come back for the right person. And I think if you're here still listening to this episode, I think you're on my level. And I think a lot of people are. Even in early episodes, self-esteem, confidence was tough. And I was able to put on a big, strong face and do it. I could be doing this in a video way, but I always found podcast where you don't have to look at something. You're getting a deeper experience sometimes when you're just listening to someone talk about something you love. And I don't want you to feel like, oh man, he just said something I disagree with and hate. I can't live with this. You email me and we'll talk about it. I'm definitely open to your theories. Oh, don't get mad, please, if I mess up any of the lore or history. I do have a lot of confidence that I know most of what's going on in the MCU, even including the Daredevil universe. How, Lord, will I help you guys catch up on that? I'll let you know now that I'm considering a full series recap, maybe a 2-hour type episode for Daredevil Born Again, going into it, touching all the big points of the Daredevil on Netflix, along with the Defenders, his story through all of that. And we'll touch on the Punisher, we'll touch on the other characters. It'll be maybe the biggest episode I've done, maybe make it a 2-parter. We'll see. That's my idea right now, because there's no way I can give you guys full seasons of Daredevil before March. It's just going to be rushed. So I recommend starting to watch it if you haven't seen it. Netflix, it's not on Netflix anymore. It's on Disney Plus now. They're all on Disney Plus. Go watch Daredevil. Watch them in order. Don't feel too worried about watching Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage. They're all great shows. Let Daredevil sell you, and let Daredevil be your introduction. I have a feeling they're bringing back these characters, his team of the Defenders, for his show, but we don't really know anything. That's why I'd say Daredevil, Wilson Fisk, that story, great story, and it has a full arc. So when you see them in the trailer sitting at lunch, talking about, does your darker half agree that you're taking it easier? I don't know what he says, but Wilson Fisk and Matthew Murdock are talking to each other, and they seem to be at peace. He's running for mayor, like they hinted at the end of Echo. Another show I could cover. I feel like I did, but I don't think I did. Did you like Echo? Any feedback, again, I'm just going to emphasize it, MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Was it convenient for a rat to jump out of this box into the van, turn the quantum machine, basically time travel machine, on and spit Paul Rudd directly out? And it was only 5 hours for him. 5 years turned to 5 hours. Little Ant-Man comes up with the idea that saves the universe. It was his idea to do a time heist. He called it that in front of Iron Man. And when Iron Man says, why? Because it's laughable and unrealistic. I like very subtle moments between Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, and Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man. He says, thanks, pissant, because he's trying to tell the Cap and Tony the possibility of going back further in time. If you don't get more Pym particles, you're not coming back. Thanks, pissant. And then the moment where they steal the Tesseract, they try, and Ant-Man goes into Tony's reactor and takes it down. It reminds us a little bit of Civil War, where he's in his suit, but now he's in his suit from the past. He gives Tony a mild arrhythmia, a freaking heart attack. Everyone freaks out. Hulk storms into the room because he had to take the stairs, and Loki gets away with the Tesseract. Maybe the biggest form of divine intervention we have seen in the series, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We all knew Loki was getting a spin-off show, and we didn't know how. And then that happened, and it was exciting. And if you want to relive some of that excitement, we did cover the first season very early on in this show, and I covered most of Phase 1 to go right into Avengers, which we covered, and then Loki. So to kind of get into where Loki is at the beginning of that series, he's not the same Loki we left, obviously. So even the cameos from Loki in this movie are great through that time travel, and it's really special what they end up doing with Loki, man. I love it. Something that's not discussed enough, but it's not our fault, but it should be paying attention a little bit more. I know people love Black Widow, right? But every time you watch this movie, at the end of the day, the final sacrifice was made by Tony, and that steals the show. And we do get to hear, I wish you could have been here to see this, that we won from Clint. And he's having that moment with Wanda, both of them about to go off into their own series, and they're sharing, their mourning for their significant others lost. Except that that's Hawkeye and Nat are friends; they're not lovers. So, and I had a hard time looking past that. I'm like, really though? When you meet his family, I think he has such a good dynamic with the actress who plays his wife. Totally get the dynamic between him and Nat. They're best friends. Seeing Red Skull again, terrifying. In theaters of Captain America, I saw that man get sucked into a portal, and none of my friends believe me, but I was like, we're going to see him again. And the way we do is just so weird. Like, I think there's like a mind in each Infinity Stone. They carry something that I don't know how to say it. Like, we see the Soul Stone world when Thanos snaps, and we see young Gamora. That we see in a deleted scene from Tony as well. The fact that they didn't put that in the movie, I mean, that goes to show, I think Tony Stark will be returning. They're bringing Robert Downey Jr. back. Of course he's going to play Doctor Doom. But he's on for the movie. They don't have to pay him a separate price to play the old character. He's in the movie. So, in my opinion, I hope they DH Captain America. At the end of this one, he gives the shield to Sam. And it's some of the best delivery. He says, I don't feel like it's mine. It is yours. And Sam pauses, and we know the conflict he goes through with the shield and Falcon and Winter Soldier, but just at this one moment, the proudest look on Sam's face. Thank you. I'll do my best. The delivery on that gives me chills because of the song playing in the background. The music in this movie, it's so good. The theme that they introduce when Iron Man is about to die in space, how good did they do making him look so frail as well? He looks so frail and sick. Oh my God, that little song at the beginning of the movie that also, he gets saved, but it's the same song that plays at the end when we're going to his funeral. I cried this time. I didn't think I would. I've seen this movie so many times. The sacrifice of Tony Stark. It's just so powerful. And it just slightly bothers me sometimes. I remember what he said to Cap when he brought him his shield. I'd like to do it, and I'd like to come back out of it alive. Bring everyone back. Don't miss the time spent. He doesn't want to lose his daughter, and maybe just make it out alive this time. He wants to be and live with his daughter, and he sacrificed that for the destruction of Thanos' army. I always forget because Hulk snapped his fingers too to bring back half of all life. That didn't kill him, but that took half his arm. And next we see Iron Man do it, and apparently it can't. He didn't prepare enough for the idea. If he had another movie like this, he always integrates what goes wrong into his suits. But he did have the idea to let the suit, in case he could, take the stones and transfer. That was planned. He always is one step ahead. If he could have just figured out something like the armor that Killmonger wears in What If Season 1, where the Infinity Stones are kind of placed across his chest, and the armor is sucking all the energy, and he's still able to use the stones. Well, let's be real. Like, he can't create that in a minute. He probably didn't think he'd be the one to snap his fingers. What Strange told him, if I tell you which reality it is, you're not going to do it, even though he holds up his finger for that one. And that does tell Tony he needs to self-sacrifice. So Doctor Strange definitely led Tony to his demise. And I think transferring center character stage Benedict Cumberbatch to sort of be maybe more of a bigger leader, taking Tony's spot. Not that anyone can fill his shoes. Doctor Strange and Tony have such a great relationship in the short time that we get to meet them. They're both very arrogant and defensive of their own beliefs. But the fact that he saw 14 million timelines and only one they win, that is something he could have kept to himself. I don't know why he would have, but that's what brought them together. But Tony's so disappointed that he gave away the stone, and I bet you Doctor Strange wants to tell him, but he can't. And that moment, he holds it up, he knows what to do. Tony already knows he's going to grab the stones right off his hand. Thanos just punched Captain Marvel, so he puts the stone back in. He gets the stone secretly. I don't know how Thanos didn't see that, but if you look really closely, he really is looking to the inner gauntlet, probably to anticipate a snap and which fingers, whatever. I could write off anything. One of my favorite parts at least of this movie is before the portal scene, just after the attack on the Avengers facility. Thank God they moved it there. It's another thing for Tony's foresight. If they got attacked like that in New York, New York would have been floored. They literally have a battlefield on campus at the Avengers facility. So, yeah, did we have to lose the whole facility? Yes, but I think they saved thousands of lives. Seriously. If that was in New York, that would have been panda frickin' monium. So much foresight on Tony's part, especially him to leave that video and for him to say, I love you 3,000 right towards his daughter. He is a genius. His death sets up everything going forward in the MCU, and ironically, when you mess with time, it tends to mess back. Let's just look at this for a minute. Let me give you a little bit of a what if. What if the very first instance ever in the multiverse, it's repeating. So it feels like Tony, he created time travel really early at first, but we know in the future, Kang has it. Well, how does Kang have it? Well, because Iron Man invented it. He knows this. I think Iron Man might have created the multiverse just with his creating of time travel, because he did create that, and you could see Bruce was able to build another platform. So like years later, descendants upon descendants, they might have lockdown rules or whatever to use this time machine. I don't know what they do, but to be realistic, the moment Tony creates time travel could be the very moment that all of the multiverse was formed. Probably not. Just a little lame little theory. There's probably plenty of things that can beat that. But in a way, think about it. Just try and think about it that way. Something I almost forgot to mention was Thor's journey in this movie. What amazing twist / take on our character Thor. We see him decapitate Thanos at the beginning. However, at the end of the movie, towards the end, they're on the time heist, and he is a mess because of everything he's lost. And it's funny. Trust me, it's definitely, most of the time, comedic relief. But it's also sad, especially if you can kind of try and hone in on what he's going through, what he's lost. He doesn't even have Jane anymore. And when we discover him, Bruce, new Hulk Banner, shows up to tell him that he saved him once, and he wants Thor to come back. The way he comes back is by Rocket telling him they got booze. The image of an icon and a hero falling from grace down to the very bottom, it's so relatable, and it's somewhere you never would expect Thor to actually be. I don't know how to state it like any bigger. I am so blown away at the portal scene where the heroes come and we get the On Your Left from Sam, and all the heroes come out to this epic Avengers soundtrack. And a big breath of fresh air, because it's been a year. Even though we know Spider-Man's coming out, it might be in another universe. Who knows? Spider-Man comes back, and Doctor Strange, and everyone. And they bring an army. And for the first time, Thanos doesn't look scared, but he doesn't look confident. And one of my favorite parts about this whole battle, we get to see all of the new heroes actually team up. Anyone who's there is pretty much an Avenger. We also get to see Thanos lose. And the movies have done such a good job of showing how tough he is, even without an Infinity Stone, beating the living hell out of the Hulk in Infinity War. We see he's a conqueror. He takes over planets. He's gonna be a huge threat to the Avengers. So the fact that our three are less than surprised to see him again when Thanos gives his final last sick speech, you cannot handle the weight of your own failures. And where did that lead you? Back to me. I swear, I love that. I get the chills. And then he goes on another tirade, explaining how he's going to destroy this universe from atom down to atom and create a new one brimming with life. Not by those who don't know what's to come, but by those who just appreciate what is. Man, Thanos really freaking believes in this cause. And like we were talking about with Ryan, how old is he? Ryan said 100. I wish I could be with him right now. Just say, dude, I think it's 1,000. Maybe he said that. I think Thanos has been a lot. I think the state of Titan when we see it in Infinity War, that's hundreds of years. That's not just 100 years. I mean, and that would mean he'd have to be born less. I just think it's long. I think Thanos is old. I think we're gonna learn more about him. In this movie, he is not the same guy that we meet in Infinity War. Those 4 years, something happens to him where he becomes more of a messiah in his own eyes. I think it might have just been he was a tyrant up until he destroyed Xandar, which we haven't seen yet, which we really it would be nice to see him attacking Xandar for the Power Stone in the opening for the show Nova, or the movie Nova, who's from Xandar. And that was a pretty big moment, I'm assuming, in their history. Did John C. Reilly survive? That's the movie from it's the place from Guardians of the Galaxy. I hope he did. I think we talked about this before. Obviously, we're going way longer than I thought. But this movie means a lot to me, and it's a powerful episode. I don't believe it's been 4 years. And covering everything in the Infinity Saga, it's a half-truth. I did cover trilogies. I covered the Ant-Man trilogy. And I think I covered another thing. Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. I mean, that's a little bit more less MCU, but it totally is canon MCU, thanks to Spider-Man No Way Home. But while there are a few episodes of, okay, this is Ant-Man 1, 2, and we're going into 3, most episodes in the Infinity Saga I've covered. Most movies of the Infinity Saga. And if there's something I missed in there, please let me know. MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. I'm not looking to break records on the time of this episode. I definitely want to stay true to not overdoing it, not completely doing 3 hours for an episode. I'm learning shorter is sweeter for me because it makes me get the information out instead of ranting like I'm doing today. I gave myself I allowed myself to do that today for the special occasion. However, I want to keep it clear and concise for you guys. That's really important for me. So Tony's sacrifice has an impact on the MCU. It really has the biggest impact on the Avengers with Cap going into old age and not having our two big heroes. I'd say the leaders. Thor's still a leader, but he's becoming more of a protector, guardian of the galaxy on his own. Not with them, but he was with them. And at the end of the movie of Thor: Love and Thunder, which we will talk about, he's a protector of the universe. So we really don't have an Avengers on Earth yet, which is why I think this will go really nicely into Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm going to rewatch that. I'll probably do an episode about it sometime closer before the movie. Falcon and Winter Soldier might transition really well into Brave New World. Hearing a lot of mixed things about Brave New World, I'd ask and hope as fans of this franchise that if it's not everything your expectations are, try not to like drag it through the dirt, because I want Anthony Mackie to succeed. I want Red Hulk to be awesome. I don't want it to be a dragging movie, a boring movie, anything. I want it to be a successful movie, just like you all do. So to tell you to not drag it through the dirt, if you're feeling something passionate and you didn't really like it, speak your mind. I'd love to hear your thoughts when we get there. Personally, for me, I'm going to be giving it every inch of my believability in what happens. I probably will be pleased with this movie, but I want more than that. I want the Marvel fans to be pleased with this movie, and Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four. Those movies have to land. If they don't, there will be the biggest panic mode at Marvel Studios that we've ever seen, because they've literally then messed up so many movies. And in my eyes, not many movies were messed up before this, but in the major majority of fans, I'm not ignoring you guys, you didn't like a lot of that. And I think they're trying to figure it out, exactly what to give, what you want, while also maintaining some integrity to the scripts and the stories and whatnot. Another huge moment. I love Thanos' speech. I know what it's like to lose, to feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail nonetheless. Something like that. And then he goes, it's frightening. It turns the legs to jelly. Ooh, I feel that. And then at the very end, as Thanos is getting snapped away, he's looking at all his soldiers, taking a good look around, and he takes a seat. His legs turn to jelly. And it mirrors the scene in Infinity War where the movie ends on him smiling after genociding half the universe. This time, he has lost and he knows it. And that is satisfying. A very satisfying ending to a villain that they have to bring back. Yes, I said it. We're in the multiverse saga. Bring back Thanos. Make him a good guy, because I love that episode of What If where he helped. Make him anything that isn't shitty. Don't ruin Thanos. I ask for the best, if not better than Thanos. Russo brothers, I know you'll do it. I know people want to see him again. I freaking want to see a redemption arc from the guy. Did he know about the emergence? Did he know? I don't think so. Watching this has made me realize how far we've even expanded our universe past this movie. You see all of the Avengers running in an army. And let's be real, like a lot of the people in that running scene when they're running towards Thanos' army, they're the soldiers and comrades of the superheroes. So if it was just the heroes, we'd see a good like 12 heroes probably like running at Thanos. But now it's going to be like 15, 16, maybe 20 heroes. Who knows? Are they going to bring like the Scarab? Oh my God, what's her name from Moon Knight? That the Egyptian goddess, awesome lady who becomes the avatar for the hippo. Is she going to be in this? What are they going to do? I loved hearing that they had that aha moment. I don't think they're lying about it. I really think the Russos want to give the audience the expectations, yet lower our expectations. So when something big happens, it's just that big, memorable surprise. Oh my God. So they beat Thanos. Tony sacrifices himself to defeat him. Cap goes to spend that time with Peggy. Personally, another moment where he could have accidentally caused a bunch of alternate timelines and the second person to maybe actually start the multiverse. Things happen so fast when it comes to time travel. Like when we watch it from the person who leaves, they come back that second. When in reality for them, they could be gone for 5 years. So I've always said this, my big theory, we are going to see Cap and Peggy dancing. They're going to have their moment. But right after where we usually see the credit cut, my theory, we see the TVA arrive to get Peggy and Steve, whether it's for help from Loki or because of all the damage Steve might have caused. And they're going to bring Steve Rogers back into the story. I don't want this to shit all over Anthony Mackie's Captain America. I want Steve Rogers back. I don't think we'll ever see Captain Carter in action again, even though I love that. I think the MCU should definitely do that. Even like a sacrifice play by Mackey's Captain America would literally make him a freaking legend and always room to come back. Honestly, they probably won't bring him back if he dies because the multiverse saga's ending. I'd hate for them to do that just to get Cap back, like Steve Rogers. Who knows? Maybe he might just be coming in as Old Man Cap and giving advice and maybe a really good speech. There's been theories as well. It's kind of like a freaking elephant in the room at this point once you realize it, that they have a de-aging machine that they discovered before time travel. Bruce and all of them are sending Paul Rudd. He was a baby. He was an old man. He was himself. They could de-age Captain America. How long does this man want to live on this earth, though? He's going to have to go and fight all its battles forever if they keep doing that. That might be kind of a cheap way to bring him back. And I think the biggest hesitance of anyone making the movies and the people, like the fans, real fans watching it, is that they don't make a mistake and something that just sits wrong with the fan base and never leaves it, like somehow Palpatine returned. Oscar Isaac, I'm so glad you found a role in Marvel because you deserve it. I love Star Wars, but man, did they shit on their fans for that last trilogy, and it took me a long time to realize that because I'm a sucker for cinema. The final point from the movie that I will bring up that I don't want to forget to say is the part she got help. Do you know what I'm referring to? It's when Spider-Man says, hey, I'm Peter Parker. Hey, Peter Parker. Captain Marvel says, you got something I'm looking for, whatever? And then he's like, are you going to be okay? And then I think it might be Okoye comes in and says, like, she has help. She'll be okay. And all the female superheroes, every one of them in the MCU, like, have a team up moment where they run towards this giant monster of aliens, alien monster thingies. I don't criticize that at all. I think actually that's really nice. And I like that we're celebrating the women of the MCU. I think female superheroes are the coolest thing in the world. I used to kind of like laugh at that scene because it was a little shoot in, but watching it this time, I'm like, damn right, these women deserve this moment. I love it. And it went to one of my favorite parts of the movie now. There's something that I hadn't mentioned that I think is really important to me. I also, aside from the thing I'm about to tell you, we did on my old podcast an episode right after Endgame came out. So it's called Avengers Endgame Roundtable Discussion. It was in 2019. It's not a lot like this podcast. I'm very immature and very silly and playing like a character-ish kind of. But if you want to see what me and my 4 or 5 friends thought about it at the time, you can go back, and that's in this catalog towards the beginning, somewhere around, I believe, the Avengers. I put that up. But it was a solid little episode. The audio wasn't great, but I thought it was really fun, so I put that back up. That's the other Endgame covers we have. We also have a tip jar in our About section. Never expected, always appreciated. And MarvelManiacPod at gmail.com. Send us your thoughts. I want to know what you think about where should we go with the show. I can't thank you enough for being a part of my journey on Marvel Maniac and MCU After Show. 4 years ago to this day, I was dreaming and saying to myself, people are out there who love what you love. Why not share your huge passion for Marvel with other people and maybe try and build a community and just talk about what you love? And that's what I've done. I've enjoyed every episode, and they might have not been the best episodes, some better than others, still learning every day. 4 years since I decided to take a step, and 4 years since the falls I took and got back up to keep doing it. I didn't want to fail the podcast. I didn't want to come back to it at a time where I was low, and I didn't want to make anyone feel low. So I waited until I was a bit better. I'm glad I did, and I'm glad to be here as your host, Eric Cicada, aka Mr. Honest. Thank you for the 4 years. Hopefully many more to come. And until next time, Avengers, disassemble.